Still not sure what I am. I'm just living my life, day to day.
You should be out there helping people.
You think I asked for any of this? I was put in some tank like an exotic fish. Came out with abilities. I just want to be left the hell alone.
Well, that would be a waste.
Harlem, perpetual symbol of hope and prosperity.
Too much happens in the shadows. People fear what they can't see.
This place is our reputation, our legacy, our blood. Hit every businessman, squeeze them hard. Everybody wants to be the king.
Sometimes if you want justice, you have to get it yourself.
Hungry arms. The hungry arms.
Give us the money.
I don't like your tone. You have my word, ma'am. I've got you.
I'm from a city where having a heart is not suggested. I'm a maverick, a tapping backs, I'm a savage. I'm cleaning braces with tongue and vacuum.
You wanna go to war? I'll take you to war.
You might be bulletproof, but Harlem ain't.
This city is supposed to represent our hopes and dreams. You have to fight for what's right every single day.
Why don't you just tell us your name?
The whole neighborhood is yapping about how 2 goons got the beat down last night.
I heard it was 4 guys.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. New Luke Cage Power Man, just watch everyone get wrecked. So let's break it down. So I like the introduction here. Luke Cage just shows up and saves Rosario Dawson. So you know that there are characters crossing over from the other Netflix series. Obviously, they're all going to cross over before Defenders. I'm expecting to see a whole lot of Iron Fist during the series, but the trailer's just like an expanded version of a lot of the stuff they showed off at Comic-Con. So one of the happiest moments in this was when he climbed out of the tank, and I'm like, oh my god, they're doing the origin story. So if you didn't know, Luke Cage was part of an experiment trying to replicate the Captain America Super Soldier Serum. It went wrong, like there was a big accident, he got electrified in the tank, and that's what gave him his variation on his Captain America powers. Because impenetrable skin aside, his strength is very comparable to Captain America's. He might even be a little bit stronger because he was so much stronger before he went in the program. So for all intents and purposes, he is the Captain America of Harlem. And that's kind of the way the people there are talking about him in the trailer. Like Misty Knight is like, you might be bulletproof, but Harlem ain't. And if it wasn't clear from the trailer, this is picking up after the end of Jessica Jones. So like at the end of Jessica Jones, he takes off and goes back to Harlem to hide out just because all the trouble that happens during that series. He kind of explains his backstory to Jessica Jones when they're talking to each other, just like, oh yeah, you know, tried the superhero thing, didn't work out. I try to take care of me and mine, but he's also trying to keep it on the DL. Like he gets really upset when he thinks that trouble's coming his way, so he blows up his own bar during that series to try and keep it under the radar so that people don't come looking for him. But obviously Trouble finds him because he goes home to Harlem and everyone's like, dude, you are a hero, be a hero, help save your town. So a lot of you are probably asking before this, is he gonna wear the classic costume at all? Are we gonna see any nods to that? The tank is probably the closest we'll get to that. Like he climbs out of the tank with the headband and the wristbands on. That's as close as we're getting to the 70s costume. The way the showrunner talked about this series is that it's kind of like the Wu-Tangification of the Marvel Universe, so it's way more hip-hop than it's funk. That's why they used that ODB Wu-Tang song in the last trailer, which I thought was like the perfect way to introduce the character. This trailer is just like a much bigger version of that. People asking, is Misty Knight gonna get her Stark Tech bionic arm? I'm not expecting that to happen during this series. They played a little more real than that. But because in the comics she's Danny Rand's girlfriend, I'm expecting her to cross over to Iron Fist when we get to that series too. So do not be surprised if Danny Rand shows up at the very end of this series. Most of this is going to be Luke Cage trying to clean up Harlem, him going up against Cottonmouth, who's going to be like the kingpin of the series. King is a very important thing too. You look at the imagery here with the Biggie Smalls like crown image, it's a very important image in the context of hip hop, especially East Coast hip hop from the 90s, East Coast versus West Coast. If you guys remember the Tupac versus Biggie Smalls stuff back in the 90s. But there's a very Game of Thrones, everyone wants the Iron Throne, everyone wants to be king vibe to it. So Cottonmouth is kind of like the kingpin of the series in that he also wants to help Harlem. So he's more like the Stringer Bell of the series, for those of you that have watched The Wire. Stringer Bell, funny enough, to talk about Marvel crossover in The Wire, Stringer Bell was played by Idris Elba, who was kind of like this aspirational drug dealer figure who consolidated a lot of power, wanted to go legit, but we also know that Idris Elba is Heimdall in the Marvel Universe, so it's just like a nice crossover between those two. So I'm thinking of him as like a more raw version of Stringer Bell, someone who likes to think of themselves as educated, cultured, someone who can bring order, but then goes the kingpin route where you become the villain of the story. But I think the really big difference between this series and Daredevil and that relationship between Kingpin and Daredevil with Cottonmouth and Luke Cage is that the Luke Cage series itself will be so much more vicious. Like if you remember how angry the hip hop wars got during the 90s, like how deadly they got, imagine a version of that playing out in the Marvel Universe with these characters. But I just love the way they frame this visually, like where he's standing with the crown above his head. And then at the end of the trailer, they even use the word Defender. So like they really want you to start thinking about the big Defenders team up, because we are getting pretty close. They're actually shooting the Defenders in New York right now. Let's see, I think I already talked about him just getting, like I just love this moment where the gangbangers in the Chinese restaurant, and he just does not know what is up, punches Luke Cage, and bam. And this Walter Mosley book that he's reading is very appropriate too. It's almost like Luke Cage reads comic books and that inspires him to become a hero. So the book that he's reading, A Little Easy Green, obviously appropriate to the villain's story, trying to get a little easy green, but the story itself is like a hard-boiled detective story about a protagonist that answers the call again. Like he picks up the case of this missing person and he tries to clean the city up. So it's like Luke Cage is reading this story about this black detective who cleans up his town one step at a time. But I really like the way the metaphor plays visually, like Luke Cage reading comic books and is inspired by the heroes in those stories to be a hero himself. And that's kind of the story of the series. Luke Cage realizing great power, great responsibility, decides to become the defender of Harlem. And I said, great power, great responsibility. Spider-Man, kind of like a combination of a street-level hero and an A-list Avenger. All these series, even though there isn't a lot of crossover, like physical crossover between the movies and the TV shows, this is happening real time. So right now in the Marvel Universe, just like a hop over the East River in Queens, Peter Parker is getting ready to start his sophomore year in high school. So this is effectively picking up after the events in Civil War, for those of you wondering where the timeline is. So let me know, what are you most excited for in this Luke Cage story? I know everybody wants to see the origin story, and everybody wants to see some Iron Fist Heroes for Hire Easter eggs. So what I'm expecting is that Danny Rand will pop up somewhere near the very end of this series, but for the most part, it's just going to be Luke Cage, and he'll be referring to stuff that happened during Jessica Jones. So giveaway time. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, Arturo Jr. Ortega. You win a $20 Amazon gift card. Sweet Christmas. Yay for giveaways. So be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. There is a new round that starts now too. There's a whole bunch of Marvel and DC stuff happening this week. So all you have to do to enter the giveaway is just be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. There was some more Thor Ragnarok that dropped. We learned more about some of the villains. They are doing Fenris Wolf and Firelord Surtur. So I'll do a video for that later this week, but there's a whole bunch of movie stuff and TV stuff happening between Marvel and DC, so I'll try to get all those videos out in the next couple days. So while you guys wait for that video to post, I was just talking about Spider-Man. You can click here to learn about the villains of Spider-Man Homecoming, super deep cuts from the comics, and you can click here to learn more about what's going on with the second Man of Steel movie. They are making another Superman movie. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody, let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.